Welcome back to Omni Garage. So today we have the Ego battery powered lawnmower.
This is the 1700E model from 2019.
Oh yeah, 56 volt.
56 volt.
Actually, all of Ego's tools are 56 volt range, right?
They are all 56 volt, and this is essentially the entry level lawnmower. It was the entry level in 2019, still would be comparable to an entry level now, and some of the things that you lack off one of their more, I guess, substantial mowers is things like the self-propulsion, the steel cutting deck, etc. This is pretty much no frills, but it's everything that you need for a small lawn.
So this is my first ever experience with A, battery powered lawnmower, and B, an Ego lawnmower.
This is my second. I had my first crack on this yesterday.
Right, on your lawn.
And what I was trying to cut yesterday is quite thick lawn. It was probably about this high. It was quite wet as well.
Right.
This thing handled it pretty well, and there were a couple of really key things that I liked about this, especially while cutting a wet lawn. One of them was, if you're using a traditional lawnmower and it gets clogged, you need to switch it off. Then what you need to do is clean it out, and then you're having to go through the startup process.
Especially if you're using a mulching-based plug on that lawnmower, right?
It can be frustrating.
Does get clogged underneath that deck.
Yeah, but it's also then the fact you're having to pull the cord again, go through the effort to start it, whereas using this battery-powered one, you just let off the trigger, it stops, you clean it, you pull back on the trigger, and you just carry on as per normal. So we borrowed this machine from one of our friends, James, so thanks to him for letting us give it a go. And I guess the reason we wanted to try it is we've got a couple of other Ego tools that we've had some experience with. Pretty impressed by the 56 volt range, and it's just about time we try a battery powered lawnmower.
And this is something that is probably additional to our current ecosystem within those Ego tools. And so straight away what I like about this tool is that if you have a traditional lawnmower, you got to go and get petrol.
Yep.
You got to make sure you maintain a little bit more by I guess doing oil changes, checking you've got oil, checking to make sure your spark plugs are nice and cleaned.
Air filter.
Air filter. So there's a little bit more maintenance required if you are using that traditional gas powered mower. You probably, I'm not sure on the specs specifically, but you might get a little bit more sort of cutting ability if you're going to the high end gas powered mowers. But although these mowers have definitely come a long way in their ability to, I guess, hold their own against the gas-powered mower. Yeah,
we can't compare this against any other electric lawnmowers. We haven't tried anything in an 18 or a 36 volt range. We're going right to the 56, which, as Glenn said, is the only one that Ego make. But I think you're bang on. I think another advantage to this as well is it's quieter. Now, the quieter machine makes it sound less powerful, I think. So that's something that you've got to get your mind around. But I think the fact that this is relatively quiet, one of my favourite things on this is that you can fold it up. You're not worrying about fluids or oil, petrol getting anywhere. It stores so nicely.
So basically, from a maintenance point of view, if you were someone who maybe lived alone or had a smaller area and didn't want to go out and get those other things and then provide the maintenance, then this is an option for you, definitely.
Yep.
That battery powered range, maintenance, almost maintenance free, and therefore it can also fold down to a nice compact size. So if you were space limited in things like garages, etc., then this is probably going to be the option for you.
Yeah, because you don't need to fold it. Well, I guess if you've got a traditional lawnmower, normally the smallest you can get it would be the length of this machine, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd fold your arms down on it and you would store it this way here. You can probably turn it sideways in the garage so it's sitting, but you have to keep it upright. Whereas this here will store upright, meaning your footprint is like this.
Yeah, and this does come with a catcher.
It does. We just don't have that with us.
Right.
You normally mulch this lawn anyway, don't you?
I usually just keep the catcher on, but I have like a little mulching plug that sort of pushes it all down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not the traditional way you do this lawn then.
But that catcher is 56 litres for this model, and it's at James's house.
Yes, it is. So we're mulching today.
Okay,
mulching,
sweet.
and we're making a bit of a mess on the
All
lawn.
right, let's show them a couple of features of this model.
All right, so on the top here, where your traditional motor would be, that's where your battery stows away, and it is weather sealed in there as well. So we're using the 5 amp hour battery with us today, which is supposedly good for about 40 minutes of runtime. Now, this machine here runs at a constant 3600 RPM, so I think that the battery rating should be pretty accurate to that, given that you're not going through variable settings on your lawnmower. And you know, one of the things that frustrates me about a traditional lawnmower is you've got the throttle on there. I'm never not cutting on full throttle, so it seems a little bit redundant. So simply pop that in there, seal it up. What's quite cool here is you've got a button as well to turn on the lights at the front of the machine. Now, I can't think of a time when I've ever cut at night time in the complete darkness, but if you're cutting at dusk, that may be quite handy to turn those lights on. give yourself a little bit more visibility over what you're doing. Now, on the side of the machine here, you've got your adjustability. So you've got 7 different cutting heights, and what's quite nice is they're actually advertised in the manual as exactly how many millimeters your cut's going to be. So you don't need to get under the machine and measure it if you're trying to cut your grass to a specific measurement. So starting on the bottom setting here, 20 millimeters, all the way to 80 millimeters at the top. And then you've got obviously all of your increments in the middle. We're cutting here on setting number 4, which is 45 millimeters today. You've got a quick adjust lever on the side here. So you've got 3 different positions that you can pop your handle into, depending on how low you want the machine to be. So you've got 1, 2, and then 3 at the top there. Quite like that on the middle setting. And then what's really cool about this is this here at the back, the way that you operate your machine. So in order to engage your blades on here, what you're doing is pressing the button, pulling back the handle, and as long as you're holding this, it remains engaged, and that's full sound as well, so it doesn't get any louder than that. As soon as I let that go, it stops. If I pull this back again, I need to re-engage that before I can start mowing. And as we said earlier, this is not a self-propelled, this is a push mower, so you are going to have to push this, hold this, and walk behind this machine in order to get your lawns done. Now here's where it gets really cool. So traditionally, you would fold your lawnmower over like so. It'll probably get to about there, and you're having to store that. What you can do with this machine is you've got a couple of clips on the handle here. So you unclip those, push those in, click it back up again. You hold your lever all the way down, and your machine can stow away like so. So when you're thinking about storing this, if it's in a shed or if it's in the side of a garage, you can place this up against your wall. Now you're 22 kilograms, this machine here, without the battery. So with the battery on there, we're probably about 24, 25 kilograms. So it isn't particularly light, but it's just so handy that you're able to store it away like that. You're not worried about any fluids dripping anywhere. You can pick it up by these handles, place that in the boot of a car if you need to. Super, super convenient. And the speed that you can get this back up into a operational fashion, just like that, and you're back and running again. I think that's a super cool feature of this mower, just how quick you can go from mowing to getting it put away in your garage, your car, or your shed. All right, so this is your first time on the mower, so it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are, especially comparing it to petrol power.
No, you gotta push that in first and then.
Push that in, good to go.
One thing I've noticed is that the cutting deck here to the wheels is in line, right?
Yep.
But because there's this bulk here that overhangs that cutting deck, you have to be slightly out from your edge.
Ah, okay.
So can you see that there? So there I am here, and there's the deck. So the deck's slightly in, well, we're sort of recessed in from the handle.
So it's probably something that you just got to take a bit more care to do your edging before you mow and just get yourself a little bit more.
So my other one has got a deck that's slightly offset, so one side of it actually pops out slightly more than the other side, and that's so that you can get your edge work done. So that's an interesting note just to take there.
It is, and what we haven't covered on here is this is a 42 centimetre cutting width. So there you go, do have a few models that cut wider than that, so this is relatively narrow.
That's actually really annoying. That is actually a really annoying thing, because your eye wants to line it right up hard against here, but you can't because you keep smacking into that.
Well, we can see here where you've actually cut. So I can see the line. You have edged this already, but you can see the line where it's not going right up to the fence line there. lawn is all mower now, so what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the way that this cut compared to my existing mower is, it's hard to tell. They both cut just as well. We did manage to drop it down to a lower setting here in the middle, and we got a little bit of where the mower started to struggle, and that's probably the same degree that my gas-powered mower would struggle as well. So I think from a cutting ability, they're probably equal. I think why you go and get something like this is you're looking for additional features. You're looking for the easy maintenance, not having to change oil and things like that. You go more battery powered, and you get yourself stuck into an ecosystem like Ego, so that you can then have all the other tools associated with it.
Yeah, I think one of the frustrations on this machine as we worked our way around the lawn was keeping in mind it's the entry-level Ego mower, but it's quite light on the lawn. So you don't have a steel deck to help you kind of weigh things down, so you are a little bit conscious when you are going over bumps to make sure that you're keeping the mower level and you're not putting it up slightly on its back wheels.
And there's also no suspension associated with the wheels here, so when you do come to those bumps, a little bit of suspension helps it to glide nice and evenly over those bumps, whereas this doesn't happen. It sort of bounces itself up.
It does.
And because it's not heavily weighted at the front, you do feel like it does
you
do that
feel
a
like
bit.
As you're leaning on it, you're constantly bringing it back, so you're having to keep yourself in check and putting your weight forward on it, and that probably leads into this piece here as well, isn't it?
So I found that when you come up to the end of your strip and you're turning it around, you've got to be fully engaged here. So you've got to make sure that that's in place, otherwise the mower stops, which can be a little bit annoying, especially when you want to hold the handle here and spin it around. The mower stops. So I would like something where that would stay probably on, like an on-off type switch, and that's, you know, if you've got a gas mower, it stays on regardless.
Well, it does. Whereas this here, you're having to keep this engaged, and I think this makes sense in the self-propulsion lawnmowers, right? If you've got a self-propelled mower, this to control your speed makes perfect sense. But and
that's for a safety thing.
It is.
So that so that you're engaged here, and so that the lawnmower doesn't escape from you. And it's probably a safety feature as well that this has to be pushed in for it to work, but I think maybe something like an on-off switch would probably make sense here.
Yeah, it's a bit like the line trimmer, right? It's the same. You have to keep your finger on the trigger, otherwise it's not going to operate and it will shut the motor off. Yeah, I think that could be improved there. It'll be interesting to see and get one of the self-propelled mowers just to compare how it works against that there. When we're thinking about battery, so we use the 5 amp hour battery around this lawn, and we just worked out we're probably sitting around 250 square meters, and we have used 3 out of the 5 bars on the battery. So we've used just over half of that. I think that's... so
you can get away with a lawn this size, absolutely.
With a 5 amp hour. You may have been able to get by with a 2.5 amp hour actually, because we did muck around a bit. We played with a few height settings, probably ran it for longer than we needed to run it for. So 250 square meters with a 2.5 amp, you probably could do it, but I think you want that 5 just to make sure you're not having to rush around the lawn.
And the light feature on the front, in a day like today, it's probably redundant. And I think in most cases it is going to be redundant. It looks cool, it looks a bit stylish, but I don't think that's why I don't think because it's got lights that you go and buy this model just because it's got lights.
I don't know too many people cutting into the dark. You know, the lawns are something you do during the daytime. So lights, I think, is a nice feature, but I think most of the time I'd leave them off. So
for me, I think I would want to go and get a better model than this one if I was to get into the ecosystem. I'd want something a bit heavier. It does feel a little bit plasticky.
Yeah, it does, but I think that if you're out there wanting to buy an entry-level mower, the price point that this is, and the fact that you don't have your steel deck keeps your weight down, which makes things like this so much easier to do. Because as soon as you add that steel deck to it,
it does get heavy, doesn't it?
You add weight to it.
It does get weighty.
It makes it a little bit more difficult, I'd say, to be putting this in the boot of a car or doing something.
Although this is entry level in the battery world, this is actually quite high end in the gas powered mowers. $600.
It's not a cheap mower.
It's getting yourself something pretty decent in the gas level. So yep, I think I would go and get the slightly better model of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm converted. I'm really keen to pick up one of these.
This technology is great, don't get me wrong. This is something that is exciting and it's new for garden tools and things like that. And if I was to get a battery powered mower, I would go into this ecosystem. Yeah,
I think what the next thing for us to do will be to pick up a self-propelled one, maybe the top of the line, compare it against our experience with us, and just see whether it matches up to our expectations. Those are really pricey though. We're hitting like $1,400 for the top of the line Ego mower, so it is right up there. You'd expect performance to be amazing on something like that. Okay, so that wraps up our thoughts on the Ego 56 volt lawnmower. keeping in mind this is the entry level, so I can only imagine the machines get a lot better from here. We do have some other Ego tools that we are wanting to cover. We already have a video in the works on a line trimmer, and we've got a hedge trimmer as well, and then we've got one of the blowers in the lineup as well. So we've got a few to ease our way into the full collection of the Ego garden tools. So make sure you hit subscribe on the channel to stay tuned for those future videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys
Catch you on the next one.